since we're focused, and this is a key element of our strategy that we announced last Friday, since the federal government's very focused of, if we're putting Canadian taxpayer dollars at work into moving these big projects forward and in other areas, we expect buy Canadian. We expect to buy Canadian steel. We expect to use Canadian IT professionals, Canadian HR, and on and on and on.
The amount of money that you're talking about here, $80 million split across 4 provinces and all small and medium-sized enterprises. Does this realistically actually serve all of the needs that are going to be out there? If you look at even the Chinese tariffs on shellfish, for instance, you know, a sustained tariff there is going to be devastating. Can this really help manage what's going to be tremendous impact for folks who aren't necessarily going to become Boilermakers or
liquidity so that businesses can pivot to grow? What I'm talking about principally today, the Regional Tariff Response Initiative, $80 million for Atlantic Canadian small, medium-sized enterprises so they can invest in the future. Those are investments. Those are proud investments. They're ambition investments for the future. The people of this province, from their history, know better than anyone how precarious an industry can be. You know that the forces can change overnight and change everything. We are clear-eyed. Canada's new government is clear-eyed about the scale and the speed of the forces currently at play outside our shores. So we're empowering Canadians to shape our own destiny, to build the future we want, an economic future that's not reliant on one trading partner, but built on strong Canadian industries, powered by strong Canadian demand, and bolstered by new international trading partners. So we're making the major investments to ensure our industries, our businesses can bridge to that future, seize opportunities, so we can create that rising tide that lifts all boats. A global leader in food, in fishing, in shipping, in defense, in IT, and in energy. Because Canada has what the world needs, and we have the values to which the world aspires. Because together, stronger, we are building Canada strong. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, and I look forward to your questions.
Gillis with CBC News.
Hi.
Prime Minister, how do you plan to pay for these support measures? Will it be adding to the deficit or through cutting programs?
So the measures we're taking, the Strategic Response Fund, liquidity so that businesses can pivot to grow. What I'm talking about principally today, the Regional Tariff Response Initiative, $80 million for Atlantic Canadian small, medium-sized enterprises so they can invest in the future. Those are investments. Those are proud investments. They're ambition investments for the future. And what the government is going to do, what we're in the process for the next budget, is focusing on reducing waste, reducing unnecessary federal spending, reducing the duplication in federal spending, becoming more efficient in federal spending so that we have the room, we have the force to support our businesses so they can invest for the future. That's what we're doing. And a key message from today is we're doing that, and we'll be working with the province of Newfoundland and Labrador on major projects in energy, clean and conventional energy, for example. We're also working with the smallest businesses in Newfoundland and Labrador so that they can all invest for a brighter future.
Cameron Kilfoy with The Telegram. I'm curious, what kind of relief can people who lost their homes to wildfires here expect from the federal government and when? And I'm also curious if you believe it's time to establish a national fire agency given the amount of destruction seen this season.
Well, I think thanks for the question, and let me first say to those families who've lost their homes, lost their property, and been through the trauma of the fires, that recognize the immense anguish that brings. I'm grateful, as I said earlier, to the Premier's leadership, to the first responders, to the forces, to the Coast Guard, the action, the speedy action and timely action that helped preserve lives during this difficult time. We're working through the compensation. It'll be at the appropriate time. My key point, though, to your question, is we have an emergency response agency which helps coordinate those responses. And I think what we're taking from that is we need to continue to invest in all aspects of fire prevention, including with Indigenous peoples, with traditional methods, all aspects of fire prevention, fire detection. We're making huge investments in our satellite detection, which is helping us to move quickly, and our capacity to move quickly in any part of this country in order to limit the damage from the wildfires. And that's everything from those first responders, our firefighters, to our water bomber capacity, and you'll be hearing more about all those aspects in the coming weeks.
Bailey Howard, NTV. We've heard a lot of talk about Churchill Falls and Gull Island being on the national projects list. What sort of responsibility does that mean Canada has in these projects? And if they were to go south, what sort of repercussions would there be then for the federal government as well?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that both of those projects and a longer list of opportunities, enormous opportunities, obviously, in Newfoundland and Labrador, and I think enormous enthusiasm and energy in order to help realize those. So I think of them not going south, I think of them going north, in this case, to use the analogy, going forward and building. And part of where the federal government comes in, and it depends on the project. There's different ways that we have a role. And by the way, sometimes the answer to our role is just get out of the way. The project's going to move forward, province has it in hand, and the federal government steps back and focuses on other things. But in a variety of cases, it will be working on making sure the appropriate environmental assessments are done, other regulatory concerns, and as much as possible done in cooperation with the province. And we're working with the province on a cooperation agreement that will help make that even more efficient. So that's one aspect. The scale of ambition in this province and in this country isn't just, and not that your question implied this, one project, but a series of projects, a series of major investments. So we're really sending the message that this is 30 years of work. These are good, high-paying careers, and the federal government can help make sure that workers have the opportunity to get the skills. So like Jenny, sorry Chief Jenny, I don't want to keep singling you out, but you get the welder's ticket, you get the boilermaker's ticket, you get the IT skills in other examples, so that you can fully take advantage of those.
Atlantic Business Magazine.
Okay.
I'm wondering about the amount of money that you're talking about here, $80 million split across 4 provinces and all small and medium-sized enterprises. Does this realistically actually serve all of the needs that are going to be out there? If you look at even the Chinese tariffs on shellfish, for instance, a sustained tariff there is going to be devastating. Can this really help manage what's going to be tremendous impact for folks who aren't necessarily going to become boilermakers or serve the major projects? Yeah, no, so I think the first thing to say is part of the way we allocate, look, $1 billion is a lot of money. The overall format, $1 billion is a lot of money. And what we're allocating here is bigger than the relative share of population, the relative share of GDP of the overall Canadian economy, allocating that way. The second is it's channeled, as I said, through ACOA, the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, and it's one of multiple projects or policies, initiatives that's channeled through ACOA. And then on top of that, we have the Business Development Bank programs as well. On top of that, we have various liquidity facilities that are available as well. So there's lots of ways to help businesses get time to develop the plan and make the pivot. I'll make another point, though. I just want to reinforce something the Premier was saying, because I think it's so important. There is a connection between these big projects and a small business. These big projects, even in the early days of the development of the engineering for these projects, the early work in the steel and fabrication industry and other, they create tremendous amount of activity as well. And since we're focused, and this is a key element of our strategy that we announced last Friday, since the federal government's very focused of, if we're putting Canadian taxpayer dollars at work into moving these big projects forward, and in other areas, we expect buy Canadian. We expect to buy Canadian steel. We expect to use Canadian IT professionals, Canadian HR, and on and on and on. And so that starts to really add up, and we're going to have to look at the whole, and we're going to add to this as necessary going forward.